Hello Isas, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here then just welcome. Hi, my name is Brenda. I do paranormal videos here on my channel, so if that is something that you are interested in, please consider subscribing down below and turn on your post notifications so you do not miss when I post another video like this one. Now with all of that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into today's video. Alright, hello everybody, happy Friday and happy spooky season. I know I was MIA I think the last week or two. I am losing track now, but here I am today bringing you some more scary stories, and of course, to stay in theme, today we're going to be talking or reading I'm going to be reading you guys some trick-or-treat stories. Now we are all decked out, all of my Halloween stuff is out. I have my cute little Halloween shirt, which you never see because of my microphone, it's just so front and center, but it's a cute little Halloween shirt that I got from Spirit Halloween, and my cute little Halloween earrings. You know, we are all in the mood now for spooky season. I can't believe Halloween is already a week from when I'm recording this. Like, it's mind-blowing. I've been working on my Halloween costume, and then we actually have an event that we're going to this time around, because usually Brandon and I just stay home and watch scary movies, eat candy and stuff, but this time his sister is throwing a Halloween party, so we're actually going to be able to put in effort into our Halloween costume and then have people see it, so that's really exciting. Anyway, enough chatting from me, let's go ahead and get into the stories, shall we? And as I said, this is going to be about trick-or-treating, Halloween, all in general, and then I believe this is going out the Friday a week before Halloween, so you'll have one more video from me before the actual day of Halloween, which lands on a Thursday this year, which also a bummer because you can't even do anything on a Thursday night. Like, you have work on Friday most likely, right? Alright, so first story, and again, this is from yourghoststories.com. This is one of my favorite places to read these from. And this first story is titled Caught on Camera, and they actually have pictures that they included in here, so I'll be posting them on the screen once it comes to the time to. Alright, and this one was submitted by Fairy Like in 2010 in United States, North Carolina, and they say, trick-or-treat was held the day before Halloween here in this small town, but I do not think that in any way hindered spirits from showing themselves that night. While we were waiting for trick-or-treat to start, I took many snapshots and videos of my dad and brother being silly, hamming it up for the camera. I caught many orbs but attributed them to dust, except for one. There was one orb that stood out. It was pink and seemed to emit its own light, and it was right next to my dad, who sadly just lost his mother very recently. Considering Grandma's favorite color was pink, to the point that she painted her whole living room this color, I think it just might have been her. I will include the picture with this posting. I would also like to add, since that night I have not caught one orb in photos while visiting. Later that night, or early the next morning, just this past Halloween, around 1 a.m., I decided to tell my best friend Christy to turn into a graveyard near my house on her way to taking me home. We both had been itching all night to check out haunted places, but instead we were coerced into hanging out with family and friends. After we stopped at the graveyard, we began scanning the grounds and asked that if there was anyone around, could they please show themselves in a photo. I snapped pictures as fast as my crappy camera would allow. It began to feel really creepy after about 10 minutes of walking around. It sounded like someone or something was walking around in the woods behind us. So Christy went back to her car with her husband. Her husband was seated in the passenger seat and was having some fast food while we hunted. Reluctantly, I returned after she blew the horn a few times, getting impatient. As I returned, I was snapping pictures the whole way. What is odd is, when I got in the car, I jokingly asked Christy, who was in the car with you guys? After reviewing what I caught, utilizing my larger computer screen, I found there were lots of orbs, which I have the tendency to discredit unless they appear to have their own light source. But on the last shot, something was out of the ordinary. I am posting the final photo. You can see Christy's husband's forehead above the passenger seat, but right next to the seat is an eerie image of what appears to me to be an old hag of some sort. What do you think? And of course, I'm posting the pictures in the screen right now. I can't say that I 100% see anything in the car picture, but the one of the orb with his dad is definitely pink, and it's not super unusual for cameras to catch colored orbs. Like sometimes they're green or blue if they reflect off of another light source. That's what you end up getting, that kind of colored orb, because there is like a couple of lamps, one lamp, and maybe there's some other lamp behind them maybe, and flash was also utilized in these pictures, so that always tends to create some kind of shadow or bounce back from the flash in a very odd way. If there happens to be anything reflective around, cameras are just kind of tricky like that, and it's hard not to use the flash when you're doing a lot of these ghost hunts or anything like that in the dark, like the picture of the car at nighttime. And I did click on it. I was trying to zoom around and like look around, and there is like an empty space with the driver's seat that kind of, I feel like maybe that's what they think is giving the illusion of an old hag. It might just be like the silhouette of the car seat, maybe something's blocking the light or something like that. But either way, very creepy. I don't always want to debunk these things because sometimes it is what it is, and people can always make their own opinions on these things. So a very creepy story. I really enjoyed that one. Now let's go ahead and get into story number 2, and this one is called The Haunting of My Other House. And this one is written by Film Buff 1234, and this was submitted in 2019 from the United Kingdom. I have written about my less than pleasant encounters in my mom's house. Now I'm going to write about my other house, owned by my dad. It's haunted by at least 4 entities: my deceased dog, a woman in a blue trench coat, a man with a top hat, and what I can only describe as a black mist. My dog didn't die in the house, but we keep several of his belongings, such as his collar, his toys, and his bones, which are all buried in the backyard, so he might have latched himself onto one of those objects. I now have 2 cats. They hiss at thin air at times. To be fair, one of them attacked his reflection the other day, so it doesn't really mean anything. My cat Daisy also attacked something in thin air a few weeks ago. I've also seen my dog out of the corner of my eye, as well as waking up to feeling paws pat down on me. I always feel safe when I'm around his presence. The woman in the blue trench coat likes appearing in doorways. I sometimes see her in the downstairs bathroom doorway. I had a friend stay around my house once, and he said he could see her in my bedroom doorway smiling at him. Girl, stop it right now. The said friend had the most notable encounter. I had 3 friends round, him and 2 others. He went to the bathroom and came back looking really pale. He said someone banged on the door and yelled at him to get out. None of us had done it. He said it was a man who told him to. He left immediately after. I believe this man is the man in the top hat. I only saw the man in the top hat once, Halloween 2017, I think. I was put in charge of giving out sweets to trick-or-treaters. There was a knock at the door. Through the glass window on our door, I could see a man in a top hat. I opened the door and no one was there. I heard a disembodied voice say, "Trick or treat." The street was empty. The black mist was my scariest experience in that house. My cat was on my windowsill and I was stroking her. Then the mist, I can't really describe it, slammed against my window. My cat hissed like crazy and I screamed. My family thought it might have been a bird. It was definitely not a bird. Those are the main things. There have also been weird noises, disembodied footsteps, me hearing talking in rooms when I was home alone, and doors opening and closing. I am aware the previous owner was very sick before we moved in. I believe this could be the woman in the trench coat. I have no clue who the man or mist could be. Okay, that was a lot to unpack. A lot of different entities kind of going about this house, doing all sorts of things, but they all seem to be one-time encounters. So she kind of has like the cataloging of each thing that's happened to her in this house, but all of these things have only happened the one time or maybe 2 times, including her friends experiencing these things. Because usually to rule out these kinds of encounters with potential paranormal activity, you sometimes have to think about the person's own, like, I don't know, imagination or their own hallucinations of some sort, because you can't sometimes just be so paranoid that these kinds of things just appear or start happening because of that reason. And they, especially if they only happen once in a while, but it seems like she's had experiences in this house and some more in her mom's house as well. So I don't want to discredit it all completely, but these things seem to happen very quickly and then kind of dissipate. So who knows what it could have been. But the part about hearing somebody knock on the door and then hearing the trick-or-treat when nobody was there is so scary. And I'm sure she would have been able to see if there was other kids in the vicinity, that maybe that's what she had heard just from far away or something. I would have loved to know just how close it sounded. Like, did it sound like it was directly at the door, or was it like kind of faint and far away? Either way, super scary. Always such a creepy thing to think about is anyone knocking on your door and no one being there. It could have been like a ding dong ditch kind of situation, but it doesn't seem too probable. So who knows? I like that story either way. It was a good one. Lots of creepy things happening in that house. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into story number 3, and this one is titled The Shadow Figure in the Haunted House. And this one is a shorter one, and it was submitted by Kate D9. And this was from 2007 in Canada. My friends and I went trick-or-treating, and we went to this certain house that was supposed to be haunted, and which some people died in. I went to the door and found it open, which was weird. This door was always boarded up and chained. I went in and heard some kids laughing and running around on the top floor. I went upstairs to investigate and tell the kids to get out, so I told my friends I would be right back. I went upstairs and saw this weird green light under the door. I went in the room and there was no one in there, and when I opened the door, there was nothing to be seen. Which was weird because I heard laughing, running, and I saw a green light. And plus, the front door had been open. Then all of a sudden, the door closed and locked itself. I went to open the door and I couldn't get it open. Then I went and looked at the window and felt like someone was right behind me, and I quickly turned around and there was a dark, tall shadow by the corner. I was so shocked at the sight. I usually am not scared at the sight of spirits, but this one just gave off a sad presence. It moved through the wall and then the door slowly opened and I walked out, and the figure was on the stairs, slowly gliding down them. It was as if he wanted me to follow it. So I did. I went down into the kitchen area and stood by the back door. I went out the door and then it felt as if there was another spirit there. It was freaky. Then the tall shadow figure disappeared. It just vanished. It felt like he wanted me to go out the door and go into the backyard, as if he wanted me to get something or find something for it. I then went to my friends and told them what happened. When I looked back, I had seen it in the window. I never went back. If anyone knows why this happened, please leave a comment. Thank you for reading. I wish I did know what happened, but this was submitted in 2007, and so I don't think she even thinks about this very much anymore. But someone did say, Halloween being the time when the border between worlds becomes thin and let spirits cross, wouldn't that then make a Halloween story more credible? and there should be more and not be discredited because of the commercialization of the festival. And yeah, it might seem cliche that this kind of thing would happen on Halloween, but as that comment said, it's more plausible because people believe that during this time is when spirits become more active, and that veil does seem to either disappear or become more thin, or something of the sort. And I don't see why people would make these kinds of things up, because with articles or like websites like this, you don't really get anything out of it. People can comment and give their 2 cents and stuff like that, ask you questions on here, but you don't get like a thumbs up, and it doesn't get seen by more people. Like, you can give it a like for your own account, like you can add it to your favorites, but people don't really get anything out of this, especially because you don't have a profile. Like, people can't see who you are. You're not going to get attention from it or anything like that. So when it comes to stories like this that are a little bit more outlandish, she says she saw a shadow figure that led her down the stairs and was kind of interacting with her more than people usually say that spirits interact with them, because usually it's short and sweet. When people see spirits or entities of some sort, they kind of just pass through. And maybe this spirit was just surprised maybe that they were being seen and that they were being acknowledged. That's what I think might have happened. Now let's go ahead and get into story number 4. This one is titled Demonic Entity Outside My Window. That's always scary, that title alone. Alright, and this one is submitted by Silverio Sanchez from Washington. Okay, I didn't even notice that. And that one was submitted in 2020, so before COVID. Alright, it says, in 2004, on October 31st, I witnessed a very disturbing image that still haunts me even today, now that I am 25 years old. I was 9 years of age at the time, and on that day, I spent the entire time at home with the whole family, watching movies and eating chocolate candy. We never really celebrated Halloween, not because of our beliefs nor the fact that Halloween was such a scary holiday, but rather the fact that my parents never understood the reason why people would waste money on costumes or risk us children getting into an accident. Well, throughout the day, we decided to watch a few films that we rented in order to spend the night with the family. As a young child, I have always had a passion with drawing, so I always carried a sketchbook with me everywhere I went. That night, as we watched the movies, I began to doze off and had the desire to draw rather than watch the movie. Lucky for me, my sketchbook was on my bed in my room. As I walked towards my room, I opened the door and walked in. While the lights were off and my bedroom window was open, I looked to my right to turn on the lights, but as I faced my right, I could not help notice the disturbing image outside my window. What I saw outside my window was the head of a pig, but not any ordinary pig. The flesh seemed to be beaten so bad, the snout ripped apart, the left eye gouged out, and the ears ripped off. The only detail that really stood out was its red glowing eye. As I stood there for a few moments staring, I could not move, as if I was paralyzed. I wanted to walk out the room as quickly as possible, but it's moments like these that fear wins over our actions. Years later, I tried to search for more cases relating to the supernatural involving the bodiless pig. I never really found any sources relating to my experience until I heard the case of the Amityville haunting. Long story short, the young boy who experienced this strange phenomenon at the Amityville house also witnessed the bodiless pig outside his window. What does this mean? After all my research and wanting to understand, I finally came to an understanding that things are better left alone than explained. Till this day, paranormal activity has still been active in my home, and myself, including my family, have become used to the phenomenon. About a year ago, I ran into the family who lived on our property before my parents purchased the house in 1996. As we talked about the experience that I and my family have encountered over the years, the father of the family did not seem so surprised. As I explained the headless pig apparition, He also talked about his experience about witnessing the same pig head outside his window. I understand I was only 9 years old when I witnessed the demonic entity outside my window, which could have been all in my head or imagination. But what is the coincidence that the family before us who lived on the same property witnessed the exact same image outside their window? That's so freaking scary. That has to be one of the freakiest things to walk into when you're not expecting anything like that to happen. You're literally just getting ready to have a movie night with your family. You're not thinking about anything scary. I don't know what genre of movie they were watching, but it was on Halloween night for sure, because they were obviously not doing anything else. And maybe they had FOMO and they were like, we should do something. We should have a movie night at least if we're not going to celebrate Halloween. So it's such a jarring thing to have a night like this where you're just kind of chilling and he's just going to go get his sketchbook so he can draw while the family watches a movie. Obviously, it was something kind of unbelievable, and maybe he hadn't even told his family until later on. Maybe they ended up discussing the fact that they had all experienced something paranormal, and now they just kind of are used to it and they just kind of deal with it. Very scary. I do not know how people do that. I guess maybe if you're not a very spiritual or religious person, it's kind of just something that you write off and you're like, oh, I don't know what that was. Some of them in the family might think it was paranormal. Other people might have a bunch of excuses for it or debunks for whatever it is, and they might not even believe in ghosts or spirits or anything like that, which would make it way much easier to live with, honestly. But yeah, very good story. That one was so much fun. I just realized he called it a headless pig, but it's just the head that they're seeing. So, but I was gonna say that it probably would be like the one from American Horror Story season 1. I feel like in my head that's what it would look like, and that is so freaking scary. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the 5th story I think I have. Yes, all right, and this one is titled Halloween Terror on Captain Ellis Lane, and this one is from Massachusetts, and it was submitted in 2021 by Virulent Peach. It was Halloween night and I was a small child of 8 years old, preparing to go trick-or-treating with a group of neighborhood children. I was going with my friend Jenny, her friends Haley and Allie, and Jenny's older brother, who would be supervising us. We had just gotten our costumes finished and were grabbing our candy bags. Just as we were about to leave, Jenny's mom announced that she had a few rules for us that must be followed. We must be home by 9 p.m., do not speak to strangers, and wherever we go, do not go down Captain Ellis Lane. Why can't we go down Captain Ellis Lane? I asked her mother, to which the reply was, that's the rule, now have fun. No further explanation. Okay. I knew where that road was because I had driven past it in the car with my mother multiple times, but never gone down. It was 3 streets down from mine, and through a series of side streets was connected to my street, as well as to the main road. All I knew was that it was desolate and dark, much more so than the other roads in its vicinity. And it had an old abandoned farm a little ways down the road. From the main road, no houses were visible. The road looked completely empty. After a passing thought of, oh, that street is a bit dark and poorly lit, that must be it, I put it out of my mind and left with my friends, ready to enjoy the evening. We went down several other streets and had gathered a lot of candy. People loved my costume. I was having a great night. I was ready to head home and mentioned to my friend's brother that we should start heading back. My friends had other plans. On the way home, we stopped right in front of Captain Ellis Lane. I was perfectly content not going down the road, but my friends all said, "What are you waiting for? Are we going or not?" No, we can't. Did you not hear what Jenny's mom said? We are not supposed to go down this road, I exclaimed, but by that point it was too late. They had already descended into the darkness, leaving me behind, and I ran ahead to catch up. I looked down the street, and from the view of the main road, it was completely unlit and looked abandoned, in complete contrast to the other streets in the area, which were well lit and densely populated. I heard the rattling of a flag against the flagpole, but could not tell where the sound was coming from, and the bristling of the wind through the trees. All I could see was one house immediately to my right, an old house that looked like a farmhouse at what appeared to be the end of the street, and a large fenced-off plot of land to the right, far ahead. The left side of the street was covered with trees and brush. It felt like I was walking down a road in the middle of nowhere, and something was lurking in the shadows, waiting to jump out. I did not like it one bit. The road forked. I looked to the right and saw that the street did, in fact, turn into a more normal-looking street, and better lit street with several houses. To the left was a gravel road encircling a large fenced-off plot of farmland. I could not see the end of the farm, but I could barely make out that in the distance was a small white shed. All of a sudden, Jenny shouted, "1, 2, 3, I'll race you to the shed, let's go!" And I immediately protested. I insisted that we were trespassing, that the farm likely belonged to one of the houses we had just passed. I did not want to get in trouble, and I will not lie. I was scared. But I also knew I would be left behind in the dark to fend for myself if I did not take off running toward that shed. Just as we prepared to go, with my heart racing and pounding out of my chest, I heard the creaking of a door which came to a hard thud as it shut. We all froze and stared at one another, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. Allie said it must be from the shed. The door was probably not firmly secured and was blown shut in the wind, she said. An explanation I was prepared to accept but did not truly believe. It was so far in the distance I could barely see it, just a vague outline. I was ready to turn and run back, but they began walking ahead of me on the gravel road, now slowly walking and trying to listen for sound of activity. As we walked, I felt the distinct sensation that someone was following us. There were 5 of us, but whomever was walking furthest back said they could hear footsteps immediately behind them. But when we stopped, they would stop with us. And when we turned around, there was no one there. Jenny's brother called out, "Is there someone there?" But no response. As we approached the shed, I heard the rustling of leaves and footsteps in the woods to the right of the gravel road. These were not the sounds of an animal, but they sounded like human footsteps. I was not even thinking of the paranormal right now. I feared we were being followed by a living person, and I was terrified. Even with the 5 of us, it would be difficult to fend off an adult attacker. Haley shouted out that she swore she saw a shadow dart in front of the shed and then disappear. I didn't see anything, but I was also too nervous to think. We climbed quietly over the fence and were now in a large plot of farmland. The shed now only a few 100 feet in front of us. We quickly approached it. I was on high alert for any movement and I was terrified. I didn't know why I didn't just turn back home by myself to Jenny's house when I was on the main road, because however dangerous it would have been, I would have felt much less nervous than here. Haley, the bravest of us all, walked up to one of the shed windows and began to peer inside. It was too dark to see anything. She took out her flashlight and began to look inside. For a few seconds, she looked around and all seemed normal. All of a sudden, she let out a loud, terrified scream, dropped her entire bucket of candy, and ran away from us through the field and back over the fence. She was stuttering as she tried to tell us what she saw. None of us understood what she was trying to say. She was shaking profusely and practically in tears, and begged us to run back to her and walk back home. I could tell she was terrified and on the verge of a panic attack. Lights began to turn on in the few nearby houses and voices could be heard. Haley's scream must have caught their attention. We quickly picked up our belongings, dashed back down the street as quietly as possible, and headed back to the main road. No one saw us as we fled as fast as we could down the dark street. When we got back to the house, Haley confessed what she saw. She said that she was looking in the shed, and at first, she only saw gardening tools and empty crates. But then, she saw a child. Not a normal child, but a small boy with gaping bloody holes where the eyes were supposed to be. A bony skeleton-like emaciated frame, and the most disgusting rotted teeth she had ever seen, smiling in a sinister smile, walking toward the window. We all froze, terrified by the thought, but we all promised that no matter what we did, we would keep it a secret from Jenny's mom that we disobeyed her rule. To this day, I do not know if she really saw the image of a child in the window or if she was playing a prank on us. But recently I drove down the road during daylight and noticed that the shed was no longer there and had been replaced. I learned that Jenny's mother had almost purchased a home on that street, but it had decided against it because she preferred the street they ended up living on, and she too had found the abandoned farm area to be creepy and off-putting and did not want us there because it was poorly lit. If only she knew what Haley actually saw that night. Oh my gosh. What a freaking crazy experience. Like, there's always those like people who immediately want to break the few rules that they were given. Obviously, maybe after this experience they learned their lesson, but the mom probably didn't give an explanation because it was very simple as that. She was like, don't go over there because there's barely any street lights. It could be dangerous. She was most likely not thinking about anything paranormal other than the fact that she did get a creepy vibe from that abandoned farmland, and the fact that that entire street was so dark and all the other houses didn't seem to have lights in front of their porches either. And that's why she probably was like, okay, stay away from there. And the one kid that's supposed to be taking care of them was the first one that was like, maybe we should go over there and check out that street. Like, why does our mom not want us to go over there? Even though there's really no point. People probably weren't putting out candy in this neighborhood, and they had no reason to be walking through there anyway. But that's what happens. You end up encountering something creepy and you have to live with it for the rest of your life. And it would be really weird for the girl Haley to have made this a prank and gone out of her way to scream out loud and run away and then give this whole fake story and never back out of it either. Never be like, I'm just joking, guys, I got you, or anything like that, or never say that she pranked them in the first place, because then there's no gratification from it either. It's just basically her making up a story, scaring all her friends, and then being like, okay, that's it, cool. And then there's nothing else for them to get out of this. So I feel like that's something that she actually saw, and she was kind of just like, that's what happened. There's really nothing else to it. She doesn't know what that was or why she even saw that. Who knows what it could have been, but I really enjoyed that story. It was a long one and it was very eerie altogether. Really put that scary mood for the end of this video that we all needed for spooky season. But yeah, that's gonna be the last story from me, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed this longer-ish video. I try to keep these like under 30 minutes usually, because the attention span is low here. Sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, I thought people would just put it on in the background and forget about it, but not a lot of people make it even halfway through the video, which is odd. But I hope that you enjoyed these stories. Thank you so much for watching all the way to this point in the video. And if you did, make sure to leave a little candy emoji. That way I know who stayed all the way to the end. And if you did, just know that I really appreciate it, and me and you are besties, duh. And also, before I do end the video, today's comment shout out goes to this person right here. Thank you so much for leaving a nice comment. I truly appreciate it. And if you want to be the next comment shout out, all you have to do is leave me a nice comment down below, and that's it. And yeah, guys, again, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to stay safe and be kind. Bye bye.